Okay, so chapter 2 is Mrs. Donnelly. Okay, your question says, what is Mrs. Donnelly's tie to Garland Farms? Here we go. The instant I saw him standing there with all that hair and all those beads, I just knew. Garland Farm. It had to be. Nobody else looked like that. Nobody had looked like that since 1970, except at Garland. He seemed terrified, and with good reason. No one knew what lay ahead of him. Lay ahead for him better than I did. I held out my hand. I'm Mrs. Donnelly. He made no move to take it. Capricorn. So he probably doesn't even know what a handshake is. Capricorn. Wasn't that just classic? My own name, Flora, was short for Flora Mundi, a world of flowers. I'd been out of that place more than 30 years, but one sight of this kid, and it all came roaring back in a tsunami of day-glow ponchos and organic lentils. Okay, so Mrs. Donnelly knows about Garland because she used to be there. Let's keep reading. I was 5 when my family joined the community, too young to remember any life before that. For 6 long years, that place was my universe. I ran around barefoot, wearing peasant dresses, shared my parents with the other kids, protested the Vietnam War, did the farm chores, and listened to a whole lot of sitar music. So, help me. I didn't know how weird it all was until my parents decided they were too old to be hippies anymore, and we rejoined the real world. That part I remember like it was yesterday. This little flowered child who barely knew how a doorknob worked suddenly dropped in the middle of a society several centuries ahead of the one that she had just left. She's talking about her childhood and how she got to modern society. I looked at Capricorn Anderson, and that's what I saw. Not a case, but a time traveler, about to step into a world that had forgotten the 60s, except for JFK and the Beatles. In my right hand was a piece of paper with the address of the foster home the Department of Child Services had assigned for the boy. I crumpled it up and tossed it in the nearest trash can. Because remember, Rain is in the hospital. So the doctor said, we'll figure something out. I'll call social services and figure something out for him because he wouldn't have a guardian. Well, Capricorn, looks like you're going to be staying at my house for a few weeks. Absolutely not, he exclaimed. I have to get back to the community. The plums aren't in yet. And after that, the apples. Everything has to be ready for when Rain comes home. I remembered Rain. She was one of the founders of Garland, the queen bee of the place when I lived there. I was always afraid of her. I thought she was a witch. Wait a minute. I put 2 and 2 together. Rachel Esther Rosenblatt is Rain? Your grandmother? He brightened. You know her? That's when I figured out the key to Capricorn's heart, so I could do what needed to be done for his own good. I used to. Way back before you were born. My family lived at Garland. Rain would want you to be with someone who understands. I had a reluctant house guest. Okay, so chapter 2. What is Mrs. Donnelly's tie to Garland Farms? Raise your hand. What's her connection to it, Lucian?
She used it over there and she called it grandmother.
Right, she grew up there. She grew up there. She is from Garland Farms.
3.
Write that down on your paper.
And I need 4 of these groups, so what will I have to do with this last group? Because I don't need one left.
All right, chapter 3. Name Zach Powers. I high-fived my way off the school bus, slapping hands on both sides of the aisle. Hey, Zach. How's it going, man? I jumped down the tarmac of the school's driveway. It was a beautiful September day. This was my time. 8th grade, captain of the football and soccer team, big man on campus. After 2 years of looking up to other people, being a 6th grader, I had finally made it to the point where there was nobody to look up to but me. Everything was perfect. I frowned. Well, not quite perfect. I noticed the sign on the front lawn read, Welcome to Claveridge Middle School. They had fixed it. Again. Unacceptable. I did a quick scan to confirm there were no teachers looking on. Mr. Sorensen's eyes were on the buses, so his back was turned. I reached up and snatched off a letter. The sign now read, "Welcome to C. Average Middle School." Much better. I stuffed the L behind the bushes and walked on, enjoying the admiration of some 7th grade girls. It was a dangerous job, but somebody had to do it. At C. Average Middle School, the buck stopped with me. Not that I was nobody last year. I was still probably the most happening 7th grader in the place. But it isn't really your school until you're a senior. I wasn't going to drop the ball on any of it. For example, the election for 8th grade president was coming up. Not that I was running myself, God forbid. The tradition at C. Average was to nominate the biggest loser in the building. No one runs against him, of course, and he wins automatically. Then, for the rest of the year, you get the pleasure of watching President Bonehead giving speeches, running assemblies, and making a complete idiot out of himself. It's top-notch entertainment, if you nail exactly the right guy. I was pretty sure I had the front runner all picked out. Ever since kindergarten, the primo nerd, bar none, had been Hugh Winkleman. Over the years, the doofus had been on the receiving end of so many wedgies that he had an elastic waistband material fused to the top of his head. Pardon the exaggeration. In a million years, there could not have been anyone more perfect for this job than Hugh. Or so I thought. I was on my way to homeroom when Mr. Kasigi, the assistant principal, flagged me down. Standing beside him was the strangest looking kid I had ever seen. He was tall and skinny as a rake. I swear he had never been anywhere near a barbershop in his life. His long blonde flyaway hair stretched all the way down to the middle of his back, and his clothes looked like pajamas. Homemade pajamas. And his shoes were something out of a social studies project on the pioneer days. They were sandals woven out of corn husks and rustled when he moved. Kasigi introduced us. Zach Powers, meet Capricorn Anderson. Cap just transferred here. Yeah, from the planet Krypton. Show him to locker 743 and make sure he gets to homeroom. He rushed off in the direction of the office. The weirdest thing about Capricorn Anderson was this. He was looking at me like I was the freak, like he had never seen another kid before. Come on, Cap, follow me. We walked down the hall, picking up more than our fair share of attention. New kid, I said aloud, just in case anybody thought he was actually with me. Kasigi asked me to show him around. Locker 743. Here it is, I told him. You've got the combo, right? He just stared at me blankly. The combination, I prompted. There, printed on the top of your orientation form. But what does it mean? I would have sworn he was putting me on, except he looked so bewildered, confused. Here, I'll show you. 17, 33, 5. There was a click and the door swung wide. He peered in as if he expected to find a mountain lying in wait. It's empty. He was beginning to rile me. Of course it's empty. It's your locker. It's empty until you put something in it. What do I have to put in there? He demanded. How should I know? It's your stuff. When we lock things away, he said with conviction, we're really imprisoning ourselves. Now that was something you didn't hear every day. What school did you go to before this? I'm homeschooled, he informed me. I'm only here because Rain broke her hip and they won't let me live alone at the community. Hugh Winkleman, you're a lucky man. With the arrival of this new kid, all the losers in school were bumped down one space. Never before had anyone screamed for the job of 8th grade president like Capricorn Anderson. This was my year. right. Look at your question for chapter 3. What was the tradition at Claridge Middle School for nominating the class president? What was it, Gio?
So basically, they would like find the lamest person in the whole school and then nominate him for president. So they would that way the person who was nominated would make a big fool of themselves. And
Yep. To nominate essentially the biggest loser in school, so that they would make a fool of themselves. Really, can you stop the thing? Can you stop the thing?